your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him.
Zohran who? Right, let me see who this guy is. Who is Zohran Mamdani?
Zohran Mamdani's victory in the Democratic mayoral primary is now official.
Zohran Mamdani claimed a victory over former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Mamdani, who is a state assemblyman from Queens, won with a commanding 56% over Cuomo's 44%. He now heads into the general election with a tremendous amount of momentum as he goes up against current Mayor Eric Adams.
Okay, cool. So this guy's the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York City. Nice, cool. Wait, what's this? Islamophobia? Wait, Israel? Why is a mayoral candidate being asked about foreign policy?
Yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
No, as a state with equal rights.
This is a great answer. What's wrong with that?
He won't say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
Okay, and?
He is the first mayoral candidate of any significance to say that he supports sanctions of Israel.
So what? Like, why does this matter to you? This guy is running for mayor. He has no influence over foreign policy.
I want you to understand that. That is America's most Jewish city, New York, and he wants to sanction Israel. And we're not allowed to mention that he's also Muslim.
And here comes the racism.
Individual Muslims can be great members of American society. We all know that. But in the macro, in the big picture, are we really benefiting the more that we are importing Islamists into the West? I say no, and I think we should have a lot of caution making a Muslim socialist the mayor of America's largest city.
Why are they so mad about Zohran Mamdani? He's a relatively new figure in politics. Young, local, calm. He's running in one of the most diverse cities on earth. And yet, the response to his candidacy has been pure hysteria. From cable news hosts to the president, it's as if Mamdani's nomination has cracked something open. But maybe that's exactly what happened. And to understand the outrage a bit better, you need to understand, in Mamdani's own words, why he chose to get into politics.
My journey in politics began with Palestine. It was and continues to be something that I deeply care about. I came to this country when I was 7 years old, and as soon as I got to any kind of level of political consciousness, the contradiction around Palestine struck me. That we claimed to hold these universal ideals, and then when it came to applying them to Palestinians, we drew a line in the sand. We said we cared about freedom, we cared about justice, we cared about safety, we cared about peace even, and yet we did not dare to apply those things to Palestine.
And this is why they are freaking out so much about Mamdani. He isn't just a candidate. He's a reflection. His rise is the manifestation of a generational shift, a visible reaction to decades of US complicity in the oppression of Palestinians. And nowhere has that discontent erupted more forcefully than on university campuses across America. Columbia, NYU, UCLA, all across the country, students have organized some of the largest pro-Palestinian protests in recent history. But what's truly extraordinary is how the system has responded. Students have been arrested, their degrees have been rescinded, job offers have been revoked, and there's been suspensions. Futures have been dismantled, not for violence, but for raising their voices, for practicing their legal, constitutional right to protest. And when you place this next to the outrage over Zohran Mamdani, a picture starts to form. This isn't just pushback, it's panic. It's a system that's losing its grip. And when power starts to slip, it doesn't loosen, it tightens. The establishment's hold is weakening, and in that desperation, it's turning draconian. Nobody's captured that fear more clearly than Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL.
All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, because again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide, it's the wrong game. The real game is the next generation.
After Greenblatt warned about an age problem, the message landed loud and clear. This isn't just about protests, it's about control. And that surge of public opinion, driven by young people, isn't confined to just the US. It's spreading across the Atlantic and frankly the whole world. And over in the UK, the protests are just as big and loud, they're just as powerful, and moreover they're just as unwelcome by those in power. But here's the thing, it's not just political leaders who are pushing back, it's the media, the gatekeepers, the narrative makers. Because when you don't control the story, people start to think for themselves, and that scares the system. That's a big no-no.
I think I've been pretty clear that these are hate marches. I think chanting of jihad on the streets of Britain in the 21st century is utterly despicable. And I don't see how any decent person or how the vast majority of the British people can find that to be acceptable behaviour. It's sickening.
You call them hate marches. Do you think everyone on these marches is hateful, as you put it?
I don't think there's any other way but to call them hate marches.
You know, Suella Braverman's time as Home Secretary was really quite something. She was essentially asking the police to crack down on these fully legal, fully legitimate, peaceful protests, especially in a country like the UK where there has long been a tradition of civil activism and protests. You know, this is quite a draconian escalation, and this just shows the extent to which the establishment, frankly, were scrambling. And that point is further illustrated just by looking at how the BBC has covered the ongoing genocide in the last 2 years. I mean, just take a look at the following.
Denying access to food is collective punishment, and that we should all be clear in saying that.
Israel will argue, obviously, that it has a right to defend itself.
And we are continuing that process until we end the starvation.
And, of course, you will know that Israel says its policy is not one of starvation.
This is a genocide happening in front of our eyes.
That word is, as you know, incredibly emotive, and the Israelis, as you know, will be saying that they are targeting Hamas only.
Preservation of life is the number one priority, and after 15 months of genocidal assault.
I don't want to go down the avenue around genocide.
The Labour Party, of all political parties, which has always had a strong peace contingent within it, is now actually supporting genocide.
Okay, if we could maybe just avoid that language if that's okay.
Israel is decapitating children and starving people, demolishing hospitals, schools and places of religious worship on an industrial scale, wiping Gaza off the map forever.
A siege is appropriate, cutting off power, cutting off water.
Well, I think that Israel does have that right.
How many more children in Palestine have to die?
Did we notice some of the language in there? Hate marches, pro-terror, out of control. These labels aren't accidental. The papers and broadcast outlets and even MPs didn't just report on the protest. They helped shape how people feel about them. And when narrative begins to sway public sentiment, controlling or discrediting it becomes essential. The BBC even refused to air a documentary on Gaza doctors, so Channel 4 had to step in. But that silence, that censorship, sends a message. And inside BBC newsrooms, there's been countless whistleblowers, staff privately saying that they were told to always stick to the line, Israel has the right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend itself. That was the editorial line that was drilled into us, into all of our coverage. It was really an integral part of the editorial stance. To a guest talking about, Israeli airstrikes killing Palestinians in Gaza, that would be the response from our presenters.
That's not reporting, that's enforcing a script. And it even shows up in the numbers too. A study found that for every Palestinian death that was covered, Israeli deaths were mentioned over 30 times more. It's a ratio of 30 to 1. This is anything but unbiased reporting. And the control goes even deeper. This isn't just media bias. It's cultural censorship in action. When a musician chants death to the IDF at Glastonbury, what happens?
Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF!
His US visa got revoked. Riddle me this, why does the US government care so much about a Glastonbury performance? They're saying that foreigners who glorify violence are not welcome, yet the same administration opens its arms to Benjamin Netanyahu, despite him carrying ICC arrest warrants for war crimes. He addressed Congress and they cheered at his every word. It's hypocrisy. They clamp down on musicians for chanting death to the IDF, yet they allow Benjamin Netanyahu into the country with open arms. Meanwhile, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are free to roam across Europe, such as when they went to Amsterdam, and sing racist chants.
Thousands of fans from Israel were here in the city, and some of them were filmed tearing down Palestinian flags,
and also chanting racist language here. After coming into the station, the Maccabi hooligans were seen threatening and physically abusing several people here. And I have the police report of one of the women they physically abused. And here she writes that she was standing here and she saw them coming and she shouted "Free Palestine" to them. And then they attacked her. They physically attacked her and also spat on her.
And you know, in Israel, there's countless chants of crowds just walking through Jerusalem shouting "Death to Arabs." And yet, no comment at all from any of these governments. And you know, this isn't some sort of fringe behavior that only exists within the outskirts of Israeli society. This is mainstream views. You know, there's marches to Jerusalem every year within Israel. And a recent poll found that over 80% of Israeli Jews support the Gaza genocide. So this isn't a, you know, few bad apples problem. This is a society. Or look at the Irish group Kneecap, for example. Their Coachella set was under immense scrutiny, right? And they were subject to a terror probe opened here in the UK. So why such an extreme reaction to music? Because the system fears not only protest, it fears losing control over the narrative. And that's not the end of it. In the UK, even legal protest is under attack. For instance, Palestine Action, a campaign group spray-painted military aircraft, right? It was non-violent but symbolic. What was their punishment? They were prescribed terrorist group under the Terrorism Act. So they are now, in the eyes of the UK government, in the same league as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. If you support them, you risk 14 years in prison, right? Protesters have been arrested in London, Manchester, Cardiff. More than 70 people were taken in the last weekend alone. Critics, artists, UN experts warn that this is an authoritarian overreach, not public safety. So this is a pattern, right? Media silences the story, gatekeepers punish the teller, laws expand to crush dissent. Each measure reveals a system overcompensating, terrified of losing its grip as the public story shifts. The West loves to talk about the rules-based international order, but when the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, the response was silent. Oh, and let's not forget the sanctions. The US sanctioned the ICC's lead prosecutor, France shrugged it off, the UK wouldn't even comment, and Israel's leaders, they still travel freely, over the airspace actually, of countries that are signatories to the Rome Statute. And they're welcomed with handshakes by the same governments that claim to uphold human rights. So let's call it what it is. International law is not law. It's a tool used when convenient and ignored when uncomfortable. And usually, it's aimed at the global south. But something is shifting, right? This system isn't just being questioned, it's being rejected. Not by radicals, but by young people. Everywhere. Poll after poll shows this. Support for Israel is collapsing amongst the youth. In the US, the UK, Europe, across the world. This is what Jonathan Greenblatt was talking about, right? They're not buying the old story anymore, and the system knows it. That's why it's lashing out. At students, at artists, politicians like Mamdani. It's not just afraid of opposition, it's afraid of losing control. This isn't just about Gaza, or student protests, or biased media, or even international law. It's about power and who holds it, and who's finally daring to challenge it. And that's what makes Zohran Mamdani so threatening. Not just his policies, not just his background, but what he represents. He's not a glitch in the system. He's the first visible crack, proof that the story is no longer being written by the usual hands. The reaction to him, the smear campaigns, the racism, the panic, it's not because they think he's going to win. It's because deep down, they know he already has. If you've made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching my video. This is my first video, it's the first of many. Please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. I'll be replying to as many comments as I can. But look out for my next video, and I hope you enjoy.